The views expressed on this program are not necessarily those of the Association for Software Testing, its management, sponsors, or staff.
I'd like to introduce our guest, Dawn Haynes. Welcome, Dawn.
Hey, Ben. Hey, Dee.
Hey.
How are you? Fantastic. Well, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, that would be, I've been in the software engineering, development, testing, training space for some odd 30 years. And
That's a little while.
It's a little while.
Yeah, it's a couple of years there.
They were big, and then they got smaller, and then now they get big again. It's like it's just it all comes back. It's like bell bottoms. So I don't feel in the weeds
They're
at
cool
all.
again, yeah.
They're cool again. But a lot of my career was focused on testing. And then I kind of branched out into the training space, and that's kind of the domain I'm in now, consulting and training. And I really just still gravitate towards testing and trying to finesse software development activities to drive to better quality. So part of the reason why I'm involved with the conferences, part of the reason why I still teach software testing classes, it's just kind of the thing I have passion around. And coming to a conference like this, I get to meet lots of other people with that sort of passion.
There are a lot of people here.
So pretty cool.
Yeah. And that's what we wanted to talk about today. We wanted to talk about training in particular.
Because it's overwhelming. Like, I think people want to do better. They want to improve their skills. They want to take classes. But then you go out there and you're like, where do I start? How do I find a training class that's actually tailored to what I want to learn? And how do I know if this class is going to be any good? And then, we joke about like the drive-by training sort of thing. It's like somebody swoops in, you get like a certain amount of time, and then you walk away and you're like scratching your head about like, what did you really learn?
It's the whirling dervish kind of approach to training.
A little dust, a little sprinkle of dust and out the door.
Yeah, good luck, bye.
Fantastic.
And so I guess like, So you teach a lot of training classes, and I think one of the reasons we wanted to talk to you about that is like, as a practitioner, if I want to take a training class, like, how do I approach my research, and how do I do you have advice for people who are looking for classes, and how do they find like a good one and and one like yours? Because
I think it's a good question. I think it's a tricky question. I've worked for a couple software companies that actually delivered training, public training, drive-by, as you say, and that was their thing. And they supplemented that with consulting. So I always think that's kind of a wise approach. But I was involved in creating those classes, marketing those classes, deciding where in the country or out of the country they were going to be held, whether they were going to be face-to-face, virtual, online CBT, where you do self-paced stuff. I mean, all those questions come up.
Right.
And it's really a challenge to match the right medium of training to the topic, and then to match the right medium of training to the learner, right? Because not everybody can learn by themselves. I'm one of those people. If I don't have anybody to talk to and say, yo, what did that mean? I'm lost. It's word 2, day 2, page 2, and I'm already lost. And I think for the technical domains that I've been in, we have always defaulted back to face-to-face training because it seems to be the most effective. At least that's what the people in the room continue to reflect. I did the online thing. I read the book, the tutorial. I don't got it, right? I need help. How do I get the help? I went to the class and then I got this much better. But I don't necessarily think that a class gives you everything that you want. And in some areas, for some topics, there's a lot of stuff out there. And for others, there's very little to come by. So you have to be judicious in your research approach. So I think you do a little Uncle Google, right? You try to find what you can find. But I also think getting on message lists and message boards and groups and
like what?
Ask it there's some LinkedIn groups on software quality, software testing. There's the software testing list. There's software testing club. And I don't know, but I think occasionally we have a newsletter that comes out from AST that talks about the BBST course,
right.
Which is not instructor-led face-to-face
No.
delivered by AST, but there are some people that do deliver that face-to-face, and it's a different experience, but it's the same content.
Right.
So I think people have to find out first what is the best modality for them. And a lot of that has to do with knowing what your learning style is. And as an instructional designer, I learned about adult learning styles and trying to build material that's appropriate for a multifaceted audience. So there are auditory learners, that is not me. If you talk to me, I don't got it. Like I have to write it down. If I write it down, then I'm becoming a kinesthetic learner, which is I have to learn by doing. And most of us as adults learn two ways. One by doing, and the other by relating what we're learning to experience that we already have. So if you're just out of school, some of these courses won't mean anything to you. If you have some experience in the hopper, actually if you have too much experience in the hopper, you'll take the course and say, this doesn't apply to me at all, which isn't necessarily true. So you have to first, I think, figure out why you're pursuing training. What are you trying to get out of it?
Someone told me I had to get a certification.
Right. So if you have to get a certification, there are things, there are ways to acquire that.
Right, yeah.
There are definitely ways.
Sure.
But could there be something else in that course that could actually bring some skills, some awareness, some knowledge to you that you'd be interested in?
So I'm going to ask you the question that I ask wait staff when I go to a restaurant. Is there anything that we should avoid? Right? Because when you talk to someone in a restaurant and you say, what's good here, they're going to say everything. But if you ask specifically, what sorts of things might I avoid? Or even frame it further and say, I'm new to testing.
Right.
Are there things I really should consider later versus something now?
Right. Don't eat the fish tacos.
Yeah, don't eat the fish tacos. They're gross. Yeah.
I have a philosophy about learning and being exposed to things in the world. I think there's not too much that can hurt you as long as you're very thoughtful about trying to do it. So if you go to a class where someone is trying to indoctrinate you into a way of doing something, I don't, and I kind of defy sort of expert advice as a baseline. That's just me. Some people seek out expert advice and want to follow it and think it will keep them safe. I think that's a little bit of dangerous thinking.
Well, and I would argue that if it really was expert advice, there'd only be one person that has it, right?
Right.
But there's so many experts.
It's true. And a lot of the guidance out there conflicts. So I think if you're looking to be told how to do testing, I don't know, read some books, do some meditation, write a letter to Santa Claus, maybe figure it out. But there are people who will tell you how to do it. And for me, that's always a red flag. I think you have to look at that. So you kind of two ways to look at a menu. One is what are the items? So looking at training, what are the topics? Right? Is the topic in sync with what I'm trying to learn or what I'm trying to pursue right now? I teach a course that's very baseline, foundation level topics on software testing. They're not the only ones. It's just a pile of them. It's typically a 3, a 4, or 5 day format, sometimes live, face-to-face, sometimes virtual, online. But people who have been in the industry for 25, 30 years tell me, I learned stuff in this class. And that amazes me. Still to this day, I'm like, dang, I guess that's okay. Right? And that's nice. Or you reminded me of something that we used to do and we don't do it anymore. And so you brought that to the forefront. That's nice. Those are cool takeaways that people have. So sometimes the topic can throw you off. You think I'm too senior for that. Sometimes the topic is precisely what you need. I think the other way to make a menu choice is what's the name on the top of the restaurant, or what's the chef's name? Who's the sous chef, right? And some people do shop for training based on the person who's delivering it. And for someone who's new to the industry, I don't think you know anybody. So how are you going to pick? So this is when you reach out to your community and say, what training classes, what people have you learned from, and maybe can you tell me something about that?
Following on with your menu option, even if it turns out that the meal isn't so great, I took training early on that helped at the time, but I discovered it wasn't really the best fit for me long term.
Right.
That happens.
Yeah.
I took it, I got value out of it. My employers get value out of it. Everybody wins. So making the leap and just picking something and going, okay, I may not get the right one, might be enough.
But you're going to learn something, and you evolve. Don't expect not to evolve.
Right.
Right. The thing that you learn today that's useful today may be the thing that you expressly avoid later. So just keep an open mind.
Right.
Right. Keep learning, and make every decision on your own. Like whatever you decide to do, say, I chose to do that because I was guided in a class or because a class encouraged me to avoid it. Right. It really doesn't matter what it is. Just own it.
All right, we got 1 minute left. We're going to go
Right.
to Twitter. I see there's tweets on the tweet printer, but it's across the room, so I got to go get it. Pete says,
Uh-oh, not Pete.
hey, Dawn, you're one of my favorite AST volunteers.
Aww.
Aw, yeah,
Peace out,
thank
Pete.
you, Pete. And,
Wish you were here.
Karen Johnson says, great online conversation with Dawn. In-depth thinking about teaching and learning. Thanks, Dawn, and thanks, AST, for the broadcast.
Awesome.
Rock on,
That's a
Karen.
cool way to end this.
That's
Sweet.
perfect.
Thank you, Dawn. We
Great.
appreciate
Thank
your
you so
knowledge
much.
and your time, and yeah, we hope everybody got something from this.
Likewise. Rock on.